How's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another daily movie review. Today, spooky season continues, and we're going to be talking about the 2014 film Unfriended. It is directed by Levon Gabriaz. It's written by Nelson Greaves. It stars Heather Sussman, Matthew Borer, Courtney Halverson, and others. The plot synopsis is a group of online chat room friends find themselves haunted by a mysterious supernatural force using the account of their dead friend. So, Unfriended, if you don't know, is what I would call a desktop horror movie, a desktop thriller. You see everything is from the desktop of one of the characters' computers. That's how the entire story is told. That's how all the information is gained. They're on a Skype call, but you're not just seeing the Skype call. You're seeing everything that character is doing on their computer. So you see them go to their Facebook page. You see them go onto their iTunes Music. You see them look stuff up on Google or Safari or whatever they're using. And that's how the story plays out. My experience with this movie is I saw it back when it came out, pretty soon after it came out. And I didn't really have much expectation for it. I think I even probably watched it like as a lark, like almost ironic viewing, thinking I was going to watch something that maybe it would be so bad I would get some laughs out of it, which is sometimes something I do with horror movies. You kind of I seek out bad horror movies sometimes just for a laugh. Like I get entertainment out of that. But what I found was something surprisingly effective. And mostly just from a structure standpoint. Like it's able to bring in all of the archetypes and all of the structure of a traditional kind of haunted house ride story, you know, and give it this new coat of paint, a fresh perspective on that concept. Now, granted, a lot of contrived stuff. There is no delving deep into how this could happen or why it's happening in terms of like technology, like how's a ghost taking over the computer and the internet. It doesn't get into any of that stuff. It really does not explain any of that, and it's to the benefit of the movie because it would really get bogged down. It is kind of just an edge of your seat, moment to moment experience, and it's surprisingly effective. Like I said, I'm always taken with like how much I actually enjoyed the movie, and I revisited it recently the other night. I watched it on a laptop outside in the dark. I was just decided, I was like, hey, whatever, I'm gonna go sit on my patio in the dark and watch this on my laptop at like 1 a.m. Best way to watch the movie. The movie holds up really, really well because of that, actually. In fact, I'd say the movie's probably aged even better as we've just kind of gone further and further down the road of social media and internet culture and whatnot. The subtext of the movie, or what the movie is dealing with basically, is kind of bullying culture in the age of social media and how those kind of things are exacerbated by social media, the abstract nature of social media, and how we can kind of dehumanize each other. You know, you don't always immediately recognize that you're talking to or interacting or affecting another human being. There's kind of a barrier there because of the screen, because of the nature of it, right? And I think the movie does a pretty decent job of handling that. I mean, it's kind of contrite. It's a little simple, straightforward. But at the end of the day, I think it was incredibly effective at getting across what it's trying to get across. And it's not trying to be super deep. It's kind of just a shallow commentary. It's used as just a framing device for a ghost to haunt people and then systematically kind of do them in, I suppose. And I think the strengths of the movie are actually in the direction and the script. It's very tight, and it knows how to kind of delve out not just the mystery, but also personal information of the characters. There's a little bit of investment with everybody. Everybody comes off as a little bit of an archetype of a friend group. So they're kind of immediately recognizable, you know, from if you think back when you were a teenager and you think about the friend groups you had, there's all these kind of people that can slot in. Now, I'm like a kid who moved around a lot. I had a lot of different kind of friend groups growing up. And what I noticed is over the years, you always kind of find the same archetypes, the same type of people that fit in the slots, you know, the funny guy, the serious person, the bitch, the jock, you know, those kind of things. And the movie successfully recreates that kind of paradigm. And it makes it immediately recognizable. And also, you know, if you were a kid, you could probably look back onto a time and think about when you were cruel to another person. Like, granted, I'm probably a little bit too old to really, on a fundamental level, like know what this specific experience is, like the social media, online culture stuff, how bullying could affect a person. Um, but it still kind of hit home. Like I still understood it, and I think I understand it better now, just having more experience with online culture in the past like 6 years since the movie came out. So I do think it's even in some respects is maybe a little ahead of its time. And the fact that it's not trying to make any sort of like really deep statement, it's just the obvious statement. Bullying is bad, and careful what you do to somebody else. You never know how their scorn might come back to get you, and they use that, the haunted scenario, the ghost scenario, to just kind of underline that. Like I said, though, like the thing that makes the movie effective is the structure, is how it plays out. I mean, there are some actually really incredibly effective scenes in this movie. Once it does a good job the first 20 minutes, like kind of establishing all of the characters, establishing the scenario. You know a little bit about what has happened to their friend, and then it kind of just goes from there. And then it just turns into kind of a ride, I would say, and it's paced perfectly, in my opinion, and it has a lot of great moments. There's a scene which I would call like the Never Have I Ever scene that is incredibly effective. It's one of the spookier or more viscerally, I don't know, like viscerally impactful scenes of one of these movies I've seen in a while, in all honesty. I think it does a really good job. And I think the fact, like I said, that it does not try to hammer home some sort of explanation as to what all of this stuff might mean and some sort of deeper level. Like it just kind of lets the movie be what it's going to be, and it doesn't have any higher aspirations. There's no pretension about the movie. It wants just to be an effective ghost story and use this medium to deliver that. And I think it worked. That's my opinion, I actually even like the sequel, which is another one I want to revisit. I have not seen it in a long time, probably since it came out. So it's been a few years. Called Dark Web, Unfriended Dark Web, which takes a different tact, but the same thing. But I thought that was another one. Actually does a really good job with the medium. And maybe that's just, maybe I'm too online. Maybe I'm just too much on the computer. But those kind of things definitely work for me. Especially, even thinking back to it now, just the past year. With like all the pandemic and like even doing this podcast, I'm much more familiar with the notion of talking to people through Skype and online, and also doing my own thing on the side while I'm chatting with people, looking stuff up. That it's got like a tactile nature that I understand, and I can kind of invest in on some level. If it does have some weaknesses, it is that while the characters are all archetypal and stuff like that, like you don't particularly like them. I was never like scared for the characters. It's more or less just how impressive like some of the beats, like, and how the pacing of the set pieces play out. That's kind of what drew me in as a film watcher. That's what I found enticing. Because the characters are, like I said, they're archetypal, and there isn't a whole lot to invest in other than just like kind of the vague recognition of who they are. They are in some ways kind of unlikable the more that you learn about them, which, in fairness to the movie, I think is maybe part of the point. There is some sort of notion about like, you can expose somebody online or you can be cruel to somebody, but everybody's got skeletons in their closet. Everybody's got things that they don't want everyone to know. And the movie utilizes the nature of that, I think, to successfully, to good ends, I suppose. I think the ending is a little dumb. I didn't love the ending of the movie, even on this rewatch. It is kind of the typical one of these kind of endings. Reminded me a lot of like Paranormal Activity, if you've ever seen that. The first one, the ending, the way that movie ends, has a similar flavor to that. But other than that, no real complaints. I think it's just a tight, fun horror thriller that was better than I ever expected it to be. Some of the cool stuff, there's like some production stuff I was looking up that was actually pretty cool. They would do like really long takes, and like for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 40 minutes. And then the actors were like, can we just like run through as much as the movie as we can? So they would do almost the entire movie in one long take. And they shot it, I think, over like 20 days or something like that, or 16 days. And 12-hour days of principal photography, 3 days of pickups, and then a few more reshoots. So shot quick and dirty. And I think that the, doing these really, really long takes and letting the actors kind of invest in the scenario and invest in everything that was going on, I think is a boon to the movie because it does play pretty naturally. I think the performances themselves are pretty convincing. Everybody's pretty good for the most part, There is a little bit of like your hacky horror characters, but that's not the majority of the cast. It's only a few of the characters, like a comic relief character, kind of the funny guy in the group. He comes off a little inauthentic in performance, not because of like the way he's written, but other than that, I think most people are pretty good in this movie. Anything else I can remember that I want to mention before I bid everyone adieu? No, that's about it. If you've never seen Unfriended, I think it's worth your time. Surprisingly enough, nobody's more surprised than me. I do like a gimmick though, so you got to take that for what it is. I don't mind a gimmick. I like when a gimmick works. I do. I just do. That's why I'm always attracted to found footage movies. It's almost part of it's like I want to see if they'll be able to pull it off. And here, they do. It's really surprising. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, bunch of links in the description. If you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily videos, throw it in the comments, and I'll put it on the list. All right, everybody. You have a great one.